It keeps pulling us up, pulling us back to where you are. And it's your love, your peace, your joy that fills our hearts. And when you move like rain, you fall right through us like a flood. Your voice, it speaks, the sound like fire to our bones. Whoa, lead us back to you. Whoa, lead us back to you. Lead us back to you. Whoa, lead us back to you. Your grace invades our lives and binds us to your heart. Your power, it fuels our soul with strength to carry on. Whoa, lead us back to you. Whoa, lead us back to you. Lead us back to you. Whoa, lead us back to you.
We rise and running through the fire, in the dark where our eyes can't see. We were rising, running through the fire. Lead us back to you. We were rising, running through the fire, in the dark when our eyes can't see. We will rise up, singing like a choir. Lead us back to you. Back to you. Back to you. Whoa, back to you. We will rise up, running through the fire, in the dark when your eyes can't see. We will rise up, singing like a choir. Lead us back to you. We will rise up, running through the fire, in the dark when your eyes can't see. We will rise up, singing like a choir. Lead us back to you. Back to you. Back to you. Take me back to the garden. Take me back to the moment I heard your voice. Bring me back to communion. Bring me back to the moment I saw your face. And it was all so simple. It was easy to love. No space between us.
dead things come back to living. I feel my heart beating again. It feels so good to know you are my friend. This is the garden, here in the place I feel you close. This is communion, here in the place I'm fully known. And it was all so simple, it was easy to love. Oh, and no space between us, you were easy to trust. Oh, you are closer, closer than my skin. You are in the air I'm breathing in. And here's where the dead things come back to living. I feel my heart beating again. It feels so good to know you are my friend. My friend. This is where I'm meant to be. Me and you and me. And I don't have to prove a thing. You've already approved of me. And this is where I'm meant to be. Me and you and me. And I don't have to prove a thing. You've already approved of me. This is where I'm meant to be. Oh, me and you and me. And I don't have to prove a thing. You've already approved of me. This is where I'm meant to be. Me and you and me. And I don't have to prove a thing. You've already approved of me. You are closer, closer than my skin. You are in the air I'm breathing in. And here's where the dead things come back to living. I feel my heart beating again. It feels so good to know you are my friend. It feels so good to know you are my friend.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited to share a few words in hopes to inspire and to continue building the church and what it looks like to be the church today. A little bit about me, I am the creative director for Future of Worship. I work here at Crosswalk with the college team. I've been doing it for about 2 years now. It's been really fun. I've been able to work with some of my best friends in building just beautiful things, creating and just doing wonderful stuff. And there's one person in particular that I love to do ministry with, and that's my brother Andy. Andy is the best person ever. If you were to ask me who my inspiration would be, it would be Andy. I would always say Andy, hands down. He's the best person in my entire life, the one that's always pushed me to be my best, who has always called me to be greater than I am, and to always inspire me and to love and to be kind and to carry myself with grace and with hope and with confidence. So Andy's been really fun to work with, and he's just the type of person that will always choose optimism. He'll always be happy in every single moment. There's so many times where I've felt my worst, and he has always been right there, leading me with kindness, leading me with grace, and leading me with courage, and showing me what it means to love and what it looks like to love within weakness, and always pushing me to see that there is better and that things will be okay. I remember this one time in May of this last year, peak quarantine, peak COVID. We were all in our homes, just doing everything at home. And I remember this one day, I was getting ready to register for my next quarter of school. I was doing online schooling through a school that was online, and I was preparing to register for my next quarter, and I had some issues with this form that I needed to submit. And so it had been a few weeks where I wasn't able to figure out what the issue was. I kept trying to submit the form, but it wouldn't let me, and it would say that I needed a passcode or needed something to help me confirm my identity. I don't know what it was. And so I just remember being so frustrated with not being able to figure that out. And so a few days before the deadline for registration, I called the office, the school's office, and I was like, hey, I've been calling for the last couple of weeks, there's this issue that I'm having and I still haven't been able to figure out. I was just wondering if anyone was willing to help me, if anyone could help me to solve the issue. And so luckily there was a really sweet lady. She was so kind and so caring and so attentive, and she was just there, and she was like, hi, how can I help you? Let's figure this out together. And so she walked me through the process, and she was able to help me fix the issue that I was dealing with. And so I was able to submit the form, and I was able to get everything in. And right before we ended the phone call, she says, hey, by the way, it doesn't look like this form is going to be submitted on time for the next quarter, so you're going to have to wait till the quarter after that to register and to do classes. And as soon as I heard those words, I was so sad and I was so mad. It was one of the most frustrating moments I'd ever experienced, being so close. And as soon as she told me that I wasn't going to be able to do this next quarter, I was so sad, I was mad, I was frustrated. After finding a solution, after fixing the problem, there was still no way that I could do the thing that I needed to do. I felt defeated. I felt as if I wasn't going to be doing the things that were going to lead me to success, lead me to my next phases, to my next dreams and seasons. And I just remember walking out of my room that day with so much frustration, so much anger, and I didn't want to step out of that because I was just so mad and defeated. And I remember walking towards the dining room and seeing my brother sitting at the table, and he looks up at me and he's like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And I just remember in that moment breaking down and crying and explaining to him how frustrated I was because I wasn't able to register for my next quarter, and I wasn't able to get all the things I needed to get done, and that I was a failure, and that I wasn't going to do what I needed to do, and that I was just wasting my life because I couldn't do a quarter of college, and that mom and dad were going to be frustrated at me and they're going to be disappointed, and that I wasn't going to just succeed in life, and that technology sucks and all of these things. And he said, sure, you're unable to do this. Sure, you're not able to do your next quarter and do the things that you needed to do, but that doesn't mean that you are a failure. That doesn't mean that you're not going to do the things that you've been called to do. We're in a pandemic. You're 19 years old. At the time I was 19. And he was just like, all of these things do not matter. Everything is going to be okay. And after he said that, in that moment, I just felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I just felt as if I went from thinking the worst case scenario to thinking that I was such a terrible person for not figuring out one thing and for not doing 1 quarter of college. And I just remember feeling an overwhelming sense of peace in that moment. In that conversation that Andy and I had, there was no hesitation for him to express his love towards me. There was no hesitation for him to express hope and his confidence in who I was. And all of that came from his love. Today, I want to talk about what it means to love and how we will be defined by the way that we love. We have been called by the Creator of love to love. That is the purpose of the church, and that is the purpose of the humanity. It is to love. I want to look at a passage in 1 Thessalonians. In this book, Paul is writing to the church of Thessalonica. He's writing to them the responsibility and the call that has been placed on their lives. He is reminding them what it looks like to live in their purpose, and showing them and telling them that it all begins in love. In the New Testament, there is a re-emphasis on the purpose and call that humans have. The original design and purpose that God has given us was and is to be in relationship. He has called us to be in relationship with Him and with others. The reason that I say it is re-emphasized is because this has always been our sole purpose. We see it clearly in the story of creation in Genesis, when God created Adam and Eve, the first 2 beings to walk on earth. What His call was to them was to love fully in relationship, was to combine in relationship, and to create among themselves. Then we see it again in the New Testament, when Jesus walked through the earth. In this moment when Jesus interacted with us, He showed us what it meant to live in relationship and to love fully. He showed us in every interaction that He had, in every single moment He healed someone. Jesus was constantly teaching us what it looks like to love, what it looks like to be selfless, what it looks like to be in relationship. And I believe so strongly that when Jesus was here, He retaught us what it looks like to build the future. He retaught us what it looks like to be living in our purpose. I believe the church has been called to influence humanity through love, to constantly beam the goodness and the beauty in Christ's love. Growing up, I've always desired being in relationships, whether that's with family, friends, or even romantic relationships. I've always desired being in that space of loving and being loved by someone. I remember when I was little, I had the strongest desire to always be held in my parents' arms. That's when I felt their love the most and where I felt safest. And every time they would put me down, I just remember I would cry my eyes out because I didn't want them to let me go. And it became a serious issue when I started kindergarten. Unlike many kindergartners, 6-year-old kids who are ready to be independent and ready to take on the world, I was still in this space of missing my parents and always wanting to be with them. And I remember every time I would get dropped off at school, I would cry my eyes out. It was awful. I was not ready to leave them. I remember so vividly the process of being dropped off at school. It would always be my mom, my brother, and I driving to school. And whenever we would get to the school's drive-thru, I would start to tear up. I would start to feel this ache inside of me that I was going to be left here, that I was being abandoned, and that I had to do life alone. I remember sometimes my mom would see that I was just so sad and not ready to go to school, so she would drop off my brother first, and she would go through the drive-thru multiple times just to sit with me and try and calm me down. And whenever she would park the car and she would walk me to class, I would start to bawl my eyes out because I'm like, yo, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be left here. Like, I want to be with you. And And there would be times where my mom would actually take me home because she felt bad, and she would just spend the rest of the day with me. And in the days that I had to go to school, I would be spending most of my time sitting with the teacher and explaining to her how much I missed my parents and how much I just wanted to be with them and how much I did not like school and I did not want to be in that space. Nothing's changed. I remember my teacher calling my parents and being like, hey, your daughter's not ready for school. It doesn't look like she's prepared and emotionally stable enough to enter into the next school year. So we're probably going to have to hold her back another year. And I remember my parents resisting that so much, saying like, no, she is ready. She is able to do this. Like she's gonna do great things. And the teacher being like, I don't know if you see your daughter at school. She's not really that great here. And so they came to a solution. And they decided that they would have me in school for a shorter amount of time than the other kids. So instead of going in from 8 to 1:30, I would go in from 8 to 12 p.m., which wasn't really a big change, but it was something to kind of help motivate me to get through the day so I could see my parents again. And I remember I would start doing that, and all the kids would be so jealous of me because I would get to go to school and leave by lunchtime. So I would miss nap time, and I would have actual good food, not cafeteria food. And in those moments of growing up, I just remember it being so difficult to not be in the relationship with my parents physically, in proximity. You see, growing up, I needed relationship. I needed to be with my parents. I desired always to be loved by them and to love them. That hasn't changed. I still desire that every single day of my life. Being loved and loving others is something so beautiful. To see that it is a necessity to live a good life, to live a healthy life. There is actual scientific evidence of the benefits of relationship. It shows us the necessity for relationship. Some of these benefits include living longer, being happier, growing healthier emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. It also helps us grow our support system, our community, and it helps us to seek our intention and our purpose more. I have always grown my best in relationships. I've always seen my true self and my potential and all that I can do through the people that I've been in relationship with. It's true that we influence each other to do good, to be better, to always seek more, and to always step into our purpose. Since before creation, God had us in mind. He chose us with the intention to connect with us in His love. And when He created His first two humans, His first commandment was to love in relationship, was to carry responsibility together in creating a new creation and establishing a community that would continuously build in love. The call of Christ in building His kingdom requires us to understand who we are in His eyes. We are His children. We are His light. When we recognize who we are to Him, then we step into relationship and understanding His love and His desire for connection. And when we understand that and when we embody His love and reflect what it is that He desires, we begin to live in relationship with others. We begin to establish what it means to live out our purpose as humans. However, when we choose to be in relationship with Christ and when we choose to step into the purpose that He has called us to, we must understand that building the new future, building relationship, must not and is not limited to the proximity of the church. To live a life focused on loving people means to live out the way of Christ, but that does not happen just within the walls of our church. If we were to establish a goal to just reach the people that are in our community, we would stay complacent and we would be blinded by the realities of darkness. Our world is not perfect. It is so insanely far from it. Now in 2020, we are seeing more and more the realities of darkness. We are seeing the disconnect between God and humanity. Through COVID-19, we are seeing the difficulty in living the fullness of life that Christ has established for us because we are physically separated. And though there has been years and years of racial injustice and oppression, we are seeing more and more of the hatred that is growing within the hearts of many. So the reason why I talk about love today is because that's what I believe the church is called to do. That has been our purpose, that we were designed and created to do. There is an opportunity to recreate what humanity looks like, to recreate the new future that God has called us to. And this begins in understanding that we are to love. When Jesus was here, he taught us what it looks like to love fully, with no limit and no capacity. And every single moment we see that Jesus chooses love. In moments in oppression, when people were being persecuted and when people were being hurt, Jesus loved. And in those moments when the people were hurting those people, Jesus loved. That doesn't mean that he was avoidant to the wrongdoing. Jesus calls out injustice. Jesus calls out people for their wrongdoings. In calling out, Jesus loves fully. No matter where a person's heart is, no matter where they are, Jesus still sees the potential of good in his creation. There has never been a time where Jesus has left his creation in darkness. He does not allow darkness to stay in darkness. He chooses to overcome darkness with his beauty and light. We see God's character in the way that he loves those who we think don't deserve to be loved. And in embodying who Christ is, we must understand that we must do the same for others. It is difficult to find love in hard moments. It is difficult to find love for those that we believe don't deserve to be loved. But when we choose to step into the call and the purpose that Christ has called us to, when we choose to step into relationship, we must also choose to love the way that he loved. We must choose to love those who we feel don't deserve to be loved. When we see the realities of humanity, we find it more difficult to choose love. When we see the pain and the suffering that people are causing others, we find it difficult to find love for them. But when we step into the purpose that Christ has called us to, when we choose relationship with him, we are choosing relationship with others. We are choosing to love others in their mess. We are choosing to love those who we feel don't deserve to be loved. To be honorers of Christ means to be honorers of Christ. To choose to step into relationship with Christ means that we are choosing to step into relationship with others. It means that we are going beyond our capacity to love. It means loving those who we feel don't deserve to be loved. Our purpose and our call to build the new future begins when we love others. It begins when we choose relationship with others. I so strongly believe that in this call that Christ has given us, he has also given us the ability to do that. He has given us the confidence, he has given us the strength, and he is continuously giving us the love. In the passage of 1 Thessalonians, Paul goes through a list of things to remind the church of Thessalonica what it looks like to live in love. And I believe these are the things that we should be looking for and embodying right now as we build the new future. First, love is encouraging those who've become disconnected from the power of love. It does not look like hatred. It does not look like avoidance of difficulty. Encouraging in love looks like calling out those whose hearts have grown desire for darkness. It looks like calling out the oppressor and moving them to seek the heart of Christ in his fullness. It looks like encouragement to detach hatred from human. Second, love is stepping into the weakness of others and standing with them in their pain, lifting them out of that. Relationship is serving. It means picking the other up when they're unable to stand on their own. It means advocating for the oppressed, fighting fully for them to be seen and for them to be loved. 3, love is being patient with people you partner with, listening and being intentional about every need they have. There is still beauty found in the difficulty of waiting and listening and responding. It is understanding that not everyone will see the same thing, but learning to love in the midst of those differences. 4, Love is finding grace for each other in the midst of difficult moments and seasons, and respecting when you may not get along or when you may feel exhausted. That is what Christ's loyalty looks like. And lastly, love is seeing the best in each other. It's always trying to pull that out. We do life so much better when we are pushed to be our best. Expanding our capacity together builds more. Seeing the best in people is one of the sweetest things anyone could ever do. Imagine the kind of love that would be within our surroundings if people chose to see the best and pull out the best in each other. I hope that you find people that can do that for you, and I hope that you can be the person that does that for others. I want to leave with a command that Christ has called us to. It is in John 13:34-35. It reads, "Let me give you a new command. Love one another. In the same way I've loved you, you love one another. This is how everyone will recognize that you are my disciples, when they see the love you have for each other." Future of, I want to leave you with a prayer that I wrote, designed to continue the church and our journey in building the new future. If you see me reading off of a screen, it's because I am. It goes like this. May we discover an even greater love, so reflective of Christ's love for us. May we seek the love that can only be found from connection with Christ, a love that leads with the intention to embody the character of Christ, expressing the overwhelming grace of his heart. May we discover what it means to love outside of the proximity of the church, to build partnership with those who see different, knowing that Jesus does the same. May we live with a love purpose towards advocating for the oppressed, and calling out those who oppress to a higher place in seeking the realness of Christ. A love that serves in another's weakness, a love that has no capacity. May we lead ourselves in the call that has been placed in our hearts with confidence, recognizing that this is a part of the story of creation. This is a part of rebuilding humanity and the new future. Amen.